Good afternoon. Today we're going to take a trip down to the wire mill. That's near Gatwick Airport, East Grinstead Way. It's about 25 miles each way. So we're starting off with an 80% charge. So there's going to be no need for a recharge today, I'm afraid. As I said in an earlier video, I've had this bike since December 2019, so just over 3 years now, and I've covered just over 14,000 miles in that time. Most of it probably commuting and short runs locally. But I have done, in 2021, I took the bike up to the Yorkshire moors and the East Coast and everything. So that was about a 250 mile journey there and back, plus the mileage I covered in between times, riding around Yorkshire. So certainly it can be used for longer journeys, but you do need to do a bit of planning, mainly around where you're going to get the recharges, the charge points. I mostly use Tesco rechargers. Up until fairly recently they were free of charge, free to use. They did start charging for them about October last year, but even now they're still considerably less to other charge points. Tesco's charged, or Podpoint, it's operated by Podpoint for Tesco's, but they charge 28p per kilowatt, which is probably comparable or a bit less to what most people pay on their domestic tariff at the moment. So not too bad at all, considering some of the other charging companies, they might be charging anything 50 to 80p per kilowatt. On the public chargers I can draw 6 kilowatts, which will give a full charge in 2 hours. But what I tend to do is I tend to ride for 60 or 70 miles typically and then stop for an hour. I prefer to stop more often and for up to about an hour each time. If I was to sort of cover the full 120 mile range that the battery can give on a longer journey in fairly warm weather, then obviously I'd have to stop and sit there for 2 hours, which at Tesco stores and a lot of other public charging stations, there's not that much around generally, so probably would get a bit boring sitting there for 2 hours. Although I find a lot of times is people are quite interested when they see a bike on a charger. They come and have a chat with you and ask about it. So typically the time tends to fly by, really, because you get involved with talking about electric motorcycles and various other things as well. I've had motorcycles for most of my life. Had a FS1E when I was 16 in the 70s, moped for a year, and then I moved on to a Yamaha RD250, and since then I've had various two-stroke classics, moving on to four-stroke race replicas. The last race replica I had was a 2011 R1 with the cross-plane crank, also known as the Big Bang engine, which is the road equivalent of the R1M that Lorenzo and Rossi used to race in that sort of era. So yeah, a very nice bike, but probably a bit too powerful for the road. and I had it for about 18 months, but in the end decided to sell it, as I was either going to lose my licence or kill myself on it probably. After that I moved on to, I had a couple of Yamaha FJR 1300 touring motorcycles, and really in the latter years the last one of those I had was a 2016 FJR 1300, and really I did a couple of European tours, one to northern France, Normandy, and one over to Germany. But other than that, in the latter years I was mostly using it for commuting, so quite a big bike to commute on. And I had looked for a year or so before buying this at different gas motorcycles, that'd be more suited to commuting, but also able to go touring if you wanted to as well. But what I found was that all the ones I looked at, from Yamaha, Suzuki, Honda, they all did less miles per gallon than the FJR 1300. So in the end it seemed pointless changing, to just pay more for petrol in the long run. And it wasn't until 2019 when Zero brought this bike out and it caught my eye that I started thinking about possibly moving over to electric. And I must say that since the change I don't regret it at all. In fact, in some ways I prefer electric to gas motorcycles. I quite like the silence and the fact that there's no gears, so whatever speed you're going you just twist the throttle and you've got the full torque instantly available. Whereas on most gas bikes you would tend to, for an overtake, you'd probably have to change down like 2 gears and then do the overtake. Whereas on this you just twist and go and it's off. Hang on tight. The wire mill where I'm heading is a lake that's got a pub sort of stroke hotel on the side of it, and also there's a water skiing club there. Not sure there'll actually be any water skiers out today, as it's still only March and 9 degrees, so, but you never know. On the way home now, I had a very nice latte at the Inn on the Lake, which is really known as the Wire Mill. I think just the locals call it the Inn on the Lake. But there was also a water skier out, so I sat there and took a bit of video on the phone of him, and I'll show you that little clip in a minute. But that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget, like, subscribe if you want to see some more, or leave me a comment with any future requests of videos, or indeed anything about electric motorcycles that you'd like to know. See you soon.